Hi there and welcome to another live episode of Mentor Minutes. Just a chance for you to ask questions about leadership and management. Here I just take the principle and the theory and apply it to real world situations from real world leaders around the world. And so I like to start these off with questions I didn't get a chance to get to, or for those that wanted to stay anonymous. So if you're coming to this late, you haven't missed a thing, the information still applies. And if you have a question for me, always drop it into the comment section. I check the prior day's episode comment section just to see if there's anything I missed, or you can email me, cm@cameronmorsey.com, or direct message me on Facebook. But I'm going to start off with a good question that I received privately, and that is, what do you do when your targets are constantly increasing, but the overall performance is decreasing? How do you turn those things around in a sales environment? And whether it is a sales environment or whether it is just general operations, if you want to start changing things around, Maria, so good to see you here. If you want to start changing things around in your operation, start small. You can't, every great winning streak starts with that first win. So look for some low-hanging fruit that you can turn around. What part of your numbers can you turn around? So in the case of a sales environment, is it the number of, the upsells that you do, or the number of items that are sold on every order? What can you focus on now? So get them focused on one thing, the right thing, and start turning that around. There's no quick and easy fix. When your targets are going this way, but your performance is going this way, you can't bridge that gap immediately. So you want to start small and just start turning that thing around a little bit and then see where things go. Your second step, and maybe this is actually a first step for you, is finding where those opportunities are. And so I'm going to refer back. It's been a few episodes. I haven't thrown out my 5 questions. Cindy, so good to see you here. I haven't thrown out my 5 questions, but if you're looking to turn things around, ask your team. Pull each one of them in individually and ask them 5 things. What do you see that's going right in the organization? What do you see that's going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities we need to take advantage of? This is key if you want to turn around performance. Where are there problems we need to fix? Another key. And how can I help you do your job better? Those 5 questions will give you the answers on what those little things are that you can book that first win, and then you start working on that winning streak. So start small if you want to turn around your performance and operations. Focus on something small, get a win, and build from there. And engage your team in this process so that you're seeing as many ideas for improvement as humanly possible. That's what's really going to help turn things around for the operation and help you start reaching towards some of those targets instead of falling further and further away from those targets. And I know that can be demoralizing for your staff, so flip it around right now. I hope that helps you out. Cindy has our first question. Always good to see you here, Cindy. And hey, as we've had some more people jump online here, go ahead. If you have any questions, anything that's bugging you for this week, any challenges you're facing, any questions that you have, drop them into the comment section and we'll just tackle them as we go. Nicole and Cindy, I see you have a follow-up there. When creating a new team, how often should there be team meetings scheduled for everyone? Great question, Cindy. And I think there is a possibility that you start very quickly. So you may start with weekly. I'll go really aggressive and say you have weekly team meetings. And then 2 months from now, that turns into bi-weekly. And 4 months from now, that turns into monthly team meetings. So, whatever that feels like in your particular environment, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. I think it is situational. So if it is very much a brand new team, I think bringing them together more regularly is a good idea to start building that team environment and helping people to understand the operation. When you're building a new team, people need to understand how the operation is functioning, not just what their particular role is. So I think there's a lot of synergies. I hate using those buzzwords, but that's the application of them. There's a lot of synergies in bringing everybody together more regularly. So truthfully, I'd start out with once a week or once every 2 weeks to bring everybody together and make it informative, but really open it up for questioning. I think one of the big problems with team meetings that you see, or department meetings, is that it becomes an update on what everybody is doing. I don't want to know what everybody's doing. I want to know what everybody is going to be doing and how other people can help. And so that's what you really want to focus on. So questions are what pulls that out. So have them frequently. You can always change them to less frequently down the road. And you can tell everybody, hey, we're going to meet every week for the first couple of months while we get this team up and going. And then we'll kind of move those to every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, something like that. So that'd be my advice on that, Cindy. Great question to kind of start us off here today. Next question is, how do I correct a contractor who has completed a job incorrectly and allow him to repair the issue? So flat out, it's not a fun conversation. And so by way of that, what you want to do is every time I'll use the communication ladder, which I talk about in my book, where you want to move up from, say, a text to an email, to a phone call, to in person. The more it's bad news or the more emotionality there is to it, the higher you want to climb on that communication ladder. So in this case, it is bad news. So at a bare minimum, it is a phone call. It isn't a text. It isn't an email. You want to get the person on the phone. If it's appropriate to meet with them in person, if you can find an excuse to be in the area, then meet with them in person. You will get better results as far as getting the contractor to come out and fix things, and you'll be able to communicate your position better. And this goes for everybody out there. If you have bad news to deliver, you want to hike as high up on that communication ladder as humanly possible. Okay? Because that cuts out all of the miscommunication, and it's better for everybody involved. While it has a lot of stress to it, shall we say, if you're communicating bad news face to face, it actually should be taking a little bit of the stress away because you're communicating more effectively. My 2 cents on that, and I hope that they come back and repair that job. That would be great. I'm caught up on questions here, so we've had a bunch of people jump on here. If you have any questions on leadership, management, anything at all, I'm just here to help. I do these sessions every day to just help communicate out some principles and ideas behind leadership and put them into practice for you. Rhonda, so good to see you here down in Australia. Good to have you tuning in. Katie's got our next question. It's, how do I be honest and act as a leader without stepping on my boss's toes? Ooh, that's a good one. Let's go ahead and get real here. So, Katie, what you want to do is you really want to be solution focused as much as possible. That helps you avoid the boss's toes. And it helps chart the path forward and away from the uncomfortable, shall we say, discussion of how they have dropped the ball, shall we say. So you want to, sorry, lost my train of thought as I'm sitting here scrolling through here. So when you bring them an issue, bring the solution with it. And don't bring judgment, okay? Part of bringing the solution helps with that judgment because you're not looking at past actions. You're looking at future actions that you want to be taking, and you're focused on the goal that you both have set for the organization and for these particular things. So that would be my number one thing, is being solution focused on this. The other thing that I would look to do is I would look to be also, and all of a sudden I'm rereading your question, I'm seeing it, kind of taking it in a different light. That is that you can be helpful to everybody in your organization without usurping the authority of your boss. Your boss has likely already told everybody what they should be doing. There's a procedure manual for everything. And so being helpful to the staff isn't something that should be stepping on their toes. And bring the boss into it. That may be the other way of tackling this, is actually bringing your boss into the question. Say, hey, I might try this, but run this by Cameron. I'll play the role of your boss in this scenario. Run this by Cameron first before you go forward with it, but this is how I would tackle that particular situation. I love the fact that you're looking to step up without stepping on your boss's toes, and you'll be able to kind of navigate those things of what is already known in the operation. What has your boss already said? And reference, tout them. Cameron's already mentioned that we want to do this, so that would be my recommendation moving forward. Let me know if I've got a feel for that question, Katie. If you need a little bit more from me, drop it down into the comment section. I'll be happy to kind of follow up, but there's 2 different tacks I could go with that particular question. So when you're bringing things to your boss, if you don't want to step on their toes, be solution oriented so that you're not focused on the past mistake. And if you are not in a leadership role, defer to them where appropriate, but also you're most likely reiterating things that are already in the employee handbook and already that they have mentioned. As Cherabelle has the next question for us, and it's, How can I be of help to my co-team leader if that team leader's team has negative comments about him or her without being offensive? What I would do is I would kind of catalog those, Cheribel. So catalog what that negative feedback is. Pick one thing. Don't hit them with the kitchen sink. Pick one thing where you can reference something that's working with your team. Hey, you know what? I was looking at this and we've had some great results in upsells when we did this with my team. If you want, I can give you the template for rolling it out. So in this case, you're coaching them, but you're coaching them from a teammate standpoint, not from a boss standpoint. And so just pick one thing. You know, old adage, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. There may be a ton of things that they need to work on. Pick one that's important that the team has mentioned to you before, and offer your assistance, offer the templates that you have, and that may play into it as well. What do you have that's an easy template that doesn't look like you're coaching them or being a boss to them, that you are just being helpful? Then look for those ad hoc moments, okay, Cheribel? So without the feedback of their team, you know, come up to them, hey, I just caught up on things. Do you guys need any help with anything? Those simple things can open the door. And in these cases, you want to be persistent with it. That so much of what I say here probably won't work, or you won't get the response that you want the first time that you try it. You need to be ready to try it 3 and 4 times. And at the 4th time you asked them and said, hey, my team's caught up on stuff. Do you need help with anything? The 4th time might be the time they say, you know what, yes, I'd love you to help out with this. When they realize you're not going to go away, that's when they often succumb to the inquiries and the requests for assistance that you have. But pick something small, something that you can help out with, tout the success that you've had and how easy it's transferable to them, and help them in that way, and then work the ad hoc as well. But be persistent. It might take 3 or 4 times before they'll actually latch on to something that you're mentioning. Janine, so good to see you here. We need to talk, Janine. It's been a while for us. Best way to get buy-in from current team on compliance, not cutting corners in preparation for a new entrant. Happy to see you're getting that new entrant on board. Part of it is, we talk a lot about the WIFM, what's in it for me. So what is in it for your team members if the person that comes in is great on compliance and not cutting corners? So I would flip this around and say, okay, so if this new person comes in and cuts corners and isn't following the compliance guidelines, what is the effect on everybody else in the organization? That's what I would explain to them. That's what I would lead out with them with. So it's not just, hey, you need to set the example for them. Okay, that's I want to say a given, but that's going to be a part of the discussion. Set the example for them, because if they start cutting corners, you guys are just going to end up having to do more work. Remember the last time that I cut a corner here and it blew up. What happened with that, Janine? And so if you have some examples of where that played out and how that caused grief for the operation, then I'd throw those out. But make sure that you're addressing what's in it for them. If they have a superstar client or superstar team member, how does that make their life easier? How can they help that person be a superstar? That's how you want to phrase things. Hope that helps out, Janine, and congrats if you've actually found somebody over there. I've been hoping for that. Recently met Kelly, thank you. Recently met with a higher up and they spoke highly of my boss and their boss. I included that in my email when I stated my great experience meeting with them. By telling them their boss spoke highly of them, could I have worded that differently, or could it be perceived as I am speaking down to them? Does this make sense? Yeah, it does to a certain extent. And I don't think that you have anything to worry about. So referencing how highly they spoke of their boss is something that can kind of be that gray area. Don't get me wrong. I think you are correct to kind of question that, but it isn't in and of itself something that speaks of, you know, some sort of weird authority that you have. So I don't think you need to be concerned with that unless you had a whole bunch of other things. So if it was in line with a number of other things where you might have been speaking down, then that might be something that's a concern. But speaking highly is something where they are hopefully recognizing that they're giving confidence to you in how the operation runs and how how good the leadership is. That's what they should be doing. That's what you should be doing. So hopefully they recognize that. But in and of itself, I don't think you have any issue with throwing that out there to them. Sherry Bell, I'm glad you like it. I did want to say I'm caught up on questions. So if you have any questions, any situations that are going on this week or that are coming up this week, drop them down in the comments section. We'll go ahead and field them there. And I do have one other question that I took offline, and that's how to overcome a persistent lack of interest in work. So this gets at the motivation question that everybody has. One of the big things to get through to your team is why they are vital to the operation and why what you do is vital to the operation. So and I assure you that your operation, your department, each one of your team members serves a vital role. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So what is that? If we talk about, the accounting department, we keep track of the lifeblood of the organization, which is cash, so that it can be deployed correctly for the benefit of everybody. Your IT departments are maintaining the operational infrastructure of the company so that everybody can perform. I worked in a contact center. We took in, through phone calls, obviously a little bit back in the day, but we took in 10% of the revenue for the entire corporation. 10% of the dollars touched our people, listened to our people's voices. So find a way to make that job important, all right? People want to work on important things. And so you want to reiterate and be reiterating on a regular basis what that is that they do and why what they do is important. That will help them have a little bit more energy behind their work. The other thing that I want to recommend is when you find that your team is in the doldrums just a little bit, what you want to try to do is mix that up. That is a pathway that they've been on. So break that cycle, whether it is mixing up where people are sitting, whether it is mixing up whatever music is playing on the on-hold music or throughout the operation. Mix something up. Look for those things so you cause a break in that behavior. The other thing that I do recommend, and you'll see me talk about this a lot, is reaching out to your employees and finding out. Your employees aren't engaged. They aren't energetic. They aren't bringing any interest to their work. Ask them why. So start with your superstars and those you have a great relationship and ask them, hey, I've noticed just kind of a general in the department lack of interest in work. Do you have any idea where that might be coming from or what people are feeling in the operation? And so you're phrasing it in a way where you're not getting specific to them. And so they feel a little bit freer. They might be disinterested for any number of reasons, and they can throw those out there and make it seem like it's somebody else. But start engaging with them. If you engage with each member of your staff, then you will find 1 or 2 or 3 things that you can act on. And then the key is following up 3 and 4 weeks later. So after you've had a chance to take that feedback, roll with it, get it into play, then you can recognize, reference the fact that you've done that. And once people know that you will take their feedback and actually act on it, you might get flooded with a number of things that will make people more interested in their work. So engage with the team, and that might help flip that around just a little bit. So when we're talking motivation, hit the importance of things. If you're on a downward trend, break the cycle. And 3, engage with the team and ask them what's going on in the operation and how you might be able to fix it. And you may just get the answers straight away there. You don't need to guess. Go to the person that's having the issue and see if you can find what the solution is from there. What's a way to bring in a new entrant when current staff cut corners and we want to change that in order to set a new standard? How do we get everyone else on board to follow up to par? And Katie, that's a fantastic question. I've had that happen before in operations where the operation was not quite up to snuff and you had a person that came in and they were gangbusters for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden the culture started getting to them. And so instead of picking up the phone on the first ring, they picked it up on the 3rd ring. Or they waited to see if somebody else might pick it up. All of those things. So I love the question. I love going with it right away. What you want to do is get crystal clear on what those expectations are. You reference par. What is par? Are you expecting all of the orders or all of the invoices to be cleaned out at the end of every night? Are you following up with people? So at 4 o'clock, everybody's supposed to leave at 5, at 4 o'clock, are you going out into the operation saying, hey, we need these all finished by the end of the day? You need to get clear on what those expectations are and then start holding people accountable for them. And it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, it is a lot of work. So you're gonna look, usually I would say take an expectation and work it into the operation over 2 or 3 weeks, and then build the next expectation in and work on that. So you kind of stair-step things up. If you have somebody coming into an operation and it's relatively small and you want that person to be up to par all the time, you know what? You're gonna have to pick your top 5 things and you're gonna have to tackle them now. You may see a couple of those things slide, but pick your top 5 things that are important and impactful to the operation, or that just kind of mirror the culture that you're looking for in the operation. Roll with those, roll with 5 more 2 or 3 weeks down the road, so you're working on now 10 different things. See how things play out. The other way to cheat on this is to actually get owners. So if you have a staff of 10, or you have a staff of 9 and you're bringing in a new entrant for 10, have somebody take ownership over one of those things. So each one of those 10 expectations, you're having somebody come back to you with the report that shows how people did. They're the ones that at 4 o'clock go around. So you're following up with one person, not necessarily the whole team, and you can spread that ownership out. That's another way to tackle it and make it a little bit more manageable. But if your current staff is cutting corners and you want to change that and you want to get them up to par, you're going to have to get clear on the expectations, communicate that out, and then you're going to have to follow up regularly over the course of 2, 3, 4, maybe even more weeks to get that new habit and that new behavior ingrained in the team. Sorry, it wasn't the fun advice I might be able to give you, or the magic bullet as I often reference it. You're going to have to put in the work, but if you do it in that order, set the expectation, communicate it out, and follow it up. That gives you the best chance of actually seeing that fruit through to fruition, okay? I wish you luck with that, Katie. And exciting, always exciting to get a new team member on board. Nikhil has the next one for us, and if a workplace follows bell curve, then why would superstar employees put efforts into training other team members? Great question, and that is a huge problem with the bell curve. And if your organization works on some sort of bell curve like that, or the classic example is GE or Microsoft used to, they've gone away from this because of the downsides of it, they used to cut 10% of their staff every year. Whoever finished the 10% bell curve, they could have superstar employees, all of them superstars, but they're cutting that bottom 10% to improve overall performance. That's the downside of it. What you might be able to do in this case is actually make training other team members part of the superstar status. So it becomes a part of the evaluation tool that, creates that bell curve. So I would say you would include another line, and you can talk to HR about this and talk to your boss about this, about including another line in there on helps other employees become better. Something along that line. Not being a good teammate, trying to be a little bit more specific than that, and try to drive that into your bell curve and make it a part of the evaluation process. Otherwise, you're appealing to people's better angels, shall we say, and that they want the organization to do well, and so they will sacrifice that risk, shall we say, of moving down that bell curve for the organization itself to be successful. It's a tough spot, but that's how I would try to do it, is try to get that in the training of other individuals into the bell curve and the evaluation process. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I'm glad you like it. Oh, yeah, I think you look like the guy on... Oh, it's gross. Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment, Herbie. Thank you. What are some prioritizing tips for fast-paced and large workloads? So if you've got a huge fast-paced workload, or fast-paced big workload, what you want to do is you want to set times where you can be prioritizing throughout the middle of the day. So I talk about this a lot as far as time management. That first 15 minutes, that's yours. Don't open up email, keep your door closed, and get started on your priorities. Okay? That allows you to create some momentum, so when you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes throughout the course of the day, you can keep that momentum going and you'll get things across the finish line a little bit more. That first 15 minutes, absolutely huge. But I also recommend, if you're moving in that fast-paced environment a lot, couple of things. One, Schedule buffer time. So 10:30 in the morning, put a half-hour meeting on your calendar every day, and at 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, another half-hour meeting. And it can just be a buffer. It's there. You're not scheduling anything into it. It is a place where you can reconnect with your priorities or get things back on schedule because some emergency happened or something else was thrown at you. Okay? You don't know necessarily in these environments, and most everybody who's tuning in here is in an environment where things are moving too fast and it's hard to keep up with the workload. So you may not know what's going to come at you, but you can be reasonably assured that every day something's going to hit. There's going to be some crisis, something you couldn't have anticipated. So schedule a little bit of buffer time. The other thing is before lunch, after lunch, reconnect with your priorities. Just 2 or 3 minutes. You connected with them at the beginning of your day, reconnect with them in the middle of your day so that you can make sure that what you are working on is the most important, is the most pressing, that you can deal with that you can deal with at that particular moment. All time management is about 2 things: priorities and focus. Those are the 2 things that you need to work on. If you are feeling overwhelmed at work, how can I increase my attachment or what I'm working on towards my priorities, and how can I increase my focus? Those are the 2 things that will see you through to the end. All right, so keep those things in mind. Take that first 15 minutes of your day. Hey, preferably it'd be first half hour or so, but sometimes that's reaching. Set up those buffer times throughout the course of your day, and then set up a time around lunchtime to reconnect with your priorities, and that will help you see that through. Now, the sad fact is for pretty much everybody out there, you will never ever get your to-do list complete. We cannot complete everything because as soon as we get the to-do list complete, we'll put on a whole bunch of things that we would have liked to have gotten squared away and we would have liked to have gotten to. And so now that we're done, we'll go ahead and get to those things. Or your boss will actually do that for you in a lot of cases. So since you can't get everything done, you can get the most important things done. And that's why we talk about priorities and we talk about focus. And you want to invest that time. I'll go ahead and say it. The way to take that pressure valve off is to bring people into your work so that you can delegate those things easier. Hey Cameron, I'm putting this report together. Can you go ahead and come over here and look over my shoulder for this 15-20 minutes so I can kind of teach you it? Those simple things where you can try to push some of that down so when things get really fast-paced and things get really crazy and your workload gets absolutely bonkers, you have those people that you can move some of those lower priority items down to so that you can keep focused on those higher priority items. It's such a key. As the current management student of information is fed. Thanks, Nicole. I'm glad you like it, and it's always good to see Alan Carino is watching here. How's it going, Alan? Next one comes in is how to manage an employee student that is consistently needy in a time poor environment. Schedule it, Nicole. Really focus on the schedule, and what you're going to have to do in these cases is to push them away. And it's not something that gets talked about a lot. We talk about being a servant leader. We talk about having an open door policy. But that makes all of your priorities subservient to everybody else's. And that's not an effective way to run an organization. There is a balance that needs to be drawn there. And I know that's what you're looking for. So what I want you to do is I want you to schedule them 10 minutes, mid-morning, let's say. So maybe 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock. Hey, work on some things, and if you have questions, store those up until 11 o'clock, and then we'll take 10 minutes and we'll talk it through. And if they come to you, say, hey, can this wait until the 11 o'clock meeting? And they'll say, no, it can't. And so they tell what it is, and you can say, no, that could have waited until the 11 o'clock. Here's your answer, but that can wait. In the future, those sort of situations wait. So you're going to need to coach them. Okay, but you still want to be supportive. So whether that is 10 minutes mid-morning and 10 minutes in the mid-afternoon, that's 10 minutes that is going to be well spent so that you can gain some sanity. You want them to try to group their questions just a little bit and be forced to have a little bit of pressure to take action without always coming to you for that insight. The other way to tackle this is to ask them what they would do. So they come to you with a question, hey, I've got this situation. Well, what do you think you should do? And when they when they have the answer, you can either coach them if they have the wrong answer, but most likely they're going to have the right answer and say, that's fine. go with that. In the future, you don't need to come to me. You can go ahead and take care of that yourself. So that's another great way. And even if you have those 10-minute meetings in the morning and the afternoon, that's a great way to be coaching them is, well, what do you think you should do in that situation? And that's pressing them to think about things, and then you can encourage them to just take action in the future and not come back to you with it. John has the next one for us, and it's, what's your approach on an employee that is rude and short with others, but the employee thinks they do not have an issue. She thinks it's everyone else. So partially, I'll come down on a completely different track than you were probably thinking, and that's partially she's right. Partially it is everyone else. We know this person is short. We know this person is rude, which means we probably know that this person doesn't necessarily mean everything that's behind it. What you want to do, John, is you want to get specific, and you want to keep calling it out. And this is uncomfortable and not fun. But when you hear about something that pops up or you overhear something, you can go ahead and bring this person into the office every, maybe 15 minutes afterwards, so everybody doesn't know exactly what it's about. And you can coach them up on this particular behavior. Yes, they are not self-aware, but what's happening a lot of times is they are self-aware. They do know that they're being rude and short, and by simply saying, well, no, I think it's everybody else that has a problem, they are able to continue with that behavior because that's their get-out-of-jail-free card. So keep bringing it up. Be consistent in bringing it up. And, it's tough to train empathy for other individuals. It is very, very difficult. But you can kind of get that 80-20 where if you can handle 20% of the things that they say and they can just shut up about them and not have that extra comment, that gets 80% of the benefit. But there's not much of a shortcut to this other than to have that consistent conversation with them. Hey, you can have the follow-up conversation with everybody else and say, hey, we know that Cameron is short and rude, but I've talked to him multiple times and he's not meaning anything behind it. That's just kind of his nature. I'm not saying it's good, I'm working with him on it, but just realize that how you would say something and it would be rude and you'd be angry about it, realize that it's not where he's coming from. And hey, maybe he is being rude and angry and all of that, but just bring up the specific instance and keep bringing it up. And the person will be, those uncomfortable conversations, I want to say, are punitive in nature. You don't have to have any write-ups. It's uncomfortable to have somebody say, hey, you're speaking wrong to somebody else. That's not fun. And so they will have an incentive to change their behavior just through your consistent coaching. It's a great, great question, John, and it's always good to see you here. Nicole, I'm glad that worked out for you. Well, I am going to give you guys about 10 seconds. If you have any more questions, drop them down into the comment section. Otherwise, if you haven't subscribed to my podcast, I would love to have you subscribe to the podcast. I will have the links up on here in probably 15 minutes after I end this particular live session. And John, I wish you the best. If there's anything that starts coming out of those, definitely drop into these. Shoot me an email. Ask me the question. I'll go ahead and address it on one of these other Mentor Minute episodes. Otherwise, for everybody over here in the States, and as I'm looking at my clock, those over in the UK and Western Europe, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, however much of it is left. For those of you on the other side of the world, I hope Monday's treating you well, and I'll see you on the other side of it. Thanks so much, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.